Well, hey there folks, my name is Alex. Behind me there is Betty. Over the last month, we have spent an exorbitant amount of time upgrading this van so that she's ready and capable to do some serious long-term international travel. If you guys have not seen the small video series that I did just previously covering all of those modifications, I'll link them right here. And I suggest just going and watching those videos to get all caught up on what has been done thus far. As promised, in this video, I am going to do a quick review of the upgrades that we have done. It's going to be a short one because I haven't actually had enough time to really go out and test the van. Because we are still breaking in our gears, we have to be really gentle on them, so I can't really get out and do some real off-roading. But in the small amount of driving that I've done to get to here, I have really noticed a difference. And I think for those of you that are interested in doing similar upgrades, you may want to hear about the performance. So let's get after that. Well, all right. Now that you're all caught up after watching those videos and you know exactly what I've done in the back, we'll get to talking about the performance. Oh wait, you haven't watched the videos yet? Oh, no worries, I'll link them right here. So in the event that you didn't catch my hints about those videos, I'll give you a brief explanation of what we have done to the van in the past month. So under the van now is the Well-Tech Design Progressive Leaf Spring. This leaf spring was custom made for the van. It has a 3.5-inch lift and a 5,000 pound load capacity. As well, we went and found a Chevy Express 2500 Duramax and took the rear Dana 70 HD3 Super out of the back, re-geared it to 4:10 ratio, and just smacked it underneath the van. And now we have like a way higher load capacity. So now in a technical sense, we have a higher GVW. Although it says 8,600 pounds inside the door, the van now technically has the same load capacity as that Duramax van, which is, I believe, 9,600 pounds. So we really gained 1,000 pounds of GVW. Yes, I know it does not say that on paper, therefore it's not legal. With that being said, we also have springs that are far more capable of handling the weight that we have added to Betty. To me, it's really important to have parts that aren't going to break down, are really reliable and easy to work on. When we were researching this axle, initially we were going for a Chevy 14 bolt, which we learned does not actually come in an Express van. Now you can correct me if you want, but that's just what my research came up with. What we did learn is that they come with Dana axles and that the Dana 70 HD3 is only equipped in some 3500s and the 2500 Duramax. I was a little bit worried about us being so close to our GVW, which we are only 60 pounds underneath. So that's what got me thinking about having a heavier axle, but we also wanted the locker and we wanted 410 gears to account for the bigger tires that we now have. So as it turns out, we could hit 3 birds with 1 stone, and there you go. Dana 70 HD3 Super kind of took care of it all, aside from the fact that we had to re-gear. But enough of me talking about that. I came here to talk about the performance. So this right here, this is a 285/75/16, which technically works out to about a 34-inch tire. You can imagine that having all of this extra tire and size puts a little bit of a strain on the van. We really noticed it when we started driving with Betty right after we finished our build. She was completely gutless. Getting out of any kind of off-roading situation, we were really putting a lot of strain on that transmission, and I just didn't like it. We do a lot of highway miles, but we also do a lot of off-road miles. Just having that torque in those off-road situations is really nice. So I wanted to get that back, and that is why we went with the 410 gears. It actually just gets the van back to its factory drivability, and in first gear, we're able to pull out of things a lot easier. At least that's what I've experienced thus far. As for fuel mileage, man, I can't really tell you what the fuel mileage is, if it improved or got worse. But one thing I do know is that when we're driving on the highway, if I need to pass a semi or something like that, not that I really pass semis very often, I can do it. And Betty just gets up and going, and we pass and then continue to go really slow. What are the slow roamers? With all that being said, I am super happy we went to 410s. The van drives so much better now. And I would strongly suggest that if you've gone with larger tires on your van, just re-gear. It makes it so much nicer to drive. So I've already had people asking me why I spent so much money on these leaf springs, these guys right here. Well, let me tell you. Like I have said many times, we like to off-road the van, and I come from a background where the vehicles that I was driving off-road were super flexy, and it was a huge attribute to have a flexy suspension system so that your tires were always on the ground, because that's how you get traction, surprise, surprise. With these springs, they're significantly longer than the factory springs, which we kind of learned the hard way. And one thing I didn't specify in the previous videos is that this is a prototype leaf spring. It has a slightly different arch, but it's still as long as the 5-inch lift springs that come from Weldtech Design. And that's why we've had the slight difficulties that we've had. Right there, the shackle's contacting the body, just smacking it, because they're longer springs, and so the springs are actually pushing the shackle further back than before, and it's hitting the frame or hitting the chassis or the body. But I wouldn't change it for a second. What I've experienced thus far with these leaf springs is that they really do flex. At full droop, you know, the tire will stay right on the ground, and we haven't lost traction even though we've been through some pretty like articulate-y, flexy stuff, which has been really great. And you know, it actually kind of feels like I'm driving my Toyota pickup. I mean, obviously not really, but she sticks to the ground, which is fantastic. As for the locker that's in here, I've actually been really surprised. I have never had an auto locker in a vehicle before, only selectable lockers. So when you turn them on, you knew they were on. And I've always been kind of skeptical about auto lockers and if they actually work. And just today, when we were coming into this spot, you know, we got into like a little area where one of the tires dropped down, and I felt that locker turn on. You know, we pulled right out of that, no problem. So I think really, in really light off-road situations, this is gonna be perfect for us. We see a lot of sand when we go to Baja, but then in those areas that we're articulating the suspension a little bit more, this thing is gonna be clutch. It does not have a clutch, but it will be clutch. You know what I'm saying? Look at that space. What's crazy is that before we put this progressive leaf spring in, this van had a 3.5-inch lift block and flat springs, and it wasn't even this high. I would say that once we put the springs in, at the very back end, we probably gained about 4 inches and definitely about 2 in the actual wheel well itself. So now we have a longer spring with better flex, bigger load capacity, and more lift. It's pretty good. Not to mention, one of the biggest benefits of not having a lift block in there is highly reduced axle wrap. One thing I noticed last year when we were out in the sand is sometimes you could really feel that axle wrapping as the van struggled to get traction in the sand. And I don't think we're gonna get that nearly as much this year, which I'm really stoked for. And before I go, I'm just gonna talk briefly about this upgrade right here, the Weldtech 3-inch lift spindle. An excellent choice. So we purchased this 3-inch lift spindle last year and have been driving around on this lift for 7 or 8 months or so. And I would say that in terms of performance for this van, it's probably one of the biggest upgrades that we have done. So you may be saying, if you're a 4-wheel drive guy, well, what's the point? It's a 2-wheel drive van. Well, some of us don't want 4-wheel drive. Or at least I don't think that I really need it for what I actually want to do in this van. If you have decided to remain a 2-wheel drive sender and have a Chevy Express van, I would highly recommend these. One of the biggest upgrades that you can do for yourself as a 2-wheel drive van driver is to increase your standover height or clearance. One of the biggest things that you're going to come up against when driving off-road is going over big rocks and stuff like that, and you just want to make sure that your van is avoiding them. So with this big mama jumbo right here, it just takes your factory hub and moves it down 3 inches. So the factory geometry for your control arms remains the same, meaning you don't beat up on your ball joints at all, but you get 3 inches of lift. I think that's pretty good engineering right there. Not to mention, you can fit these big old 33-inch mud terrains on your van now. Yeah. When we lifted the van last spring, we decided to go with the full 3-inch lift kit, which included the Fox shocks. And I would say, man, did it ever calm the suspension system down. We don't do any kind of bouncing. The van feels stable on the road. I don't know, it just like performs way better off-road than I ever would have expected. I wouldn't say the shocks were the only thing that did that, but heck, I sure like it. So it's another thing that I would suggest. So even though we haven't really had a chance to go out and test these new upgrades to the van, I know that they're gonna go a long ways in increasing Betty's drivability, her durability, and her reliability, and maybe her credibility. With plans to do some international travel in the future, we wanted to make sure that the van was really overbuilt. I know that a lot of these upgrades may not seem like they really add up or make sense to some people, but to us they do. I want to make sure that everything that we have underneath the van is top-notch, strong, and is not going to give me a lot of problems later on down the road. We really depend on this van to get us from place to place. We just want to make sure that she can keep on doing that. Betty's been so good to us, so we need to be good to her too. I think that I've probably talked to the camera enough for today, and you guys are probably getting bored by this point, but I just want to thank you for being here, for watching our videos, and for supporting us. If you are in fact in the market for a set of progressive leaf springs for either your Chevy Express or your 40 Econoline, or maybe you intend to put a 3-inch spindle lift on your van at some point, if you guys want to support us, I'm going to include some affiliate links down below in the description. And if you click on those links and purchase your items from WeldTech Design, we get a small kickback, which is usually about a tank of gas and just keeps us going. So aside from that, our compass is now pointed south towards Baja, and we're going to go and really test this van. Stay tuned for those videos because they're going to be epic and a lot of fun. And until the next one, keep on roaming. Peace.